Antwerp from Training Magazine Network. I want to welcome you all to a session today that we've never done that, but this one before because we don't repeat our sessions, and especially we want to bring this to you because it is sponsored by Panopto, who has provided some great resources here in the form of some panelists that you can see right there. I'll introduce you to them shortly, but right now I've got a little bit more information for you. Our session is from formal training to just-in-time learning, and it's very timely to have this discussion because we haven't really been talking about JIT lately. We've been talking about what? AI, right? A different part of the alphabet soup. So it's time to get back to something that's very important, just-in-time learning, and we'll do that shortly. I'm Gary Ben Antwerp. If you don't know me already, I am the producer of this webinar series, and glad to have you all here. Right, and happy to welcome you and thank you for participating in our community. So we have some other events coming up, of course, just next week. Lee Smith will be here from Sales Fuel. You can see Dr. Trevor Cox is going to return. He did a great webinar for us about 2 weeks ago, and this time he's going to tackle design thinking for learning. And then on November 19th, Garima, most of you know Garima Gupta, and you new folks, if you don't, you should get to know Garima Gupta. She's going to have a panel too, and hers is going to be about training design, and in particular this time, storytelling and scenarios. That is what Christy Tucker and Rance Green are both experts at. So we'll be talking about that on November 19th, all right? The training conference is coming up, Training 2026. It's going to be in Orlando, as it is every year. This year it's on the 23rd to the 25th, and if you can possibly join us there, we are going to be delighted to see you. What you should do is go to the handout section right underneath the chat there, and you'll see the Training 2026 brochure. You can see all the sessions. Now, here's something most people don't know. If you haven't heard me tell you, I don't think anybody else has. You can get into the expo hall not for $1,500 or $1,300 like it costs to go to the entire conference, but for $25, you can get a day pass to the expo hall and be able to rub shoulders with and or elbows, I guess, and be able to talk to everybody that's at the conference, see some sessions, and participate in some talks in the expo hall. So for $25, if you happen to be anywhere near Orlando, it's a fabulous deal. And for anybody in L&D, you should attend. All right, you can go to trainingconference.com to learn all about it. And like I said, you can download the handout. Speaking of handouts, I know you don't see the handout for today's session there in the underneath the chat, but it will be. Okay, so keep your eye on that. I do want to thank Panopto today for sponsoring. You know, Panopto has been a great friend of Training Magazine Network for years and years and years. And we had a little, they had some changes there, and they've rejoined us, and they're sponsoring this webinar, making it possible to have this webinar with these excellent guests here. I'll tell you about them in a moment. But we are so glad to have them back as a sponsor, helping us present this series to you. Panopto is the AI-powered video platform that meets modern demands for training. You know what I'm talking about. Everything that is AI generated now and so forth. So you're going to want to learn about Panopto at some point, and you're going to want to go to the panopto.com website. And that's what I recommend that you do. Okay, so we want to go ahead and get started now with our panel. This panel is brought to you by Panopto, as I said. They're a video management learning platform that transforms your organization's training and expertise into instantly searchable, reusable knowledge, making every meeting, demo, and learning a lesson accessible the moment it's needed. So first I want to introduce you to Amy Clark. She is the Chief Operating Officer at Panopto, a leading video learning platform, of course. Amy brings a people-first approach to enterprise transformation with a career-spanning strategy, HR operations, and organizational design. She's led large-scale change across financial services, SaaS, and EdTech, and her passion lies in building resilient, high-performing organizations built for the future. She's been doing that at Panopto, and I think you're going to see the result of that if you go to panopto.com. Then we have Amy Lang. Amy Lang is the head of talent for North America at Colliers International. Amy leads talent strategies that drive business objectives and enable talent to maximize their potential. She draws on her 15 plus years of experience in real estate, talent development, and leadership. She's a business driven approach to developing tailored talent strategies that support the attraction, growth, and retention of top talent within commercial real estate. And then finally, we have Julia Velosa. Julia is an executive coach, facilitator, and fractional head of people. That's a new thing that we see going on, isn't it? Fractional chiefs of departments and so forth. Well, Julia is one with she's got deep experience in L&D across hospitality, financial tech, healthcare, and she built out learning programs at Airbnb during its hypergrowth years and went on to lead people function at two fast-paced organizations before combining her hats. She has many hats to support multiple companies at once. So she's got roots in marketing and operations, and she blends business pragmatism with a coach's mindset to help people learn faster, lead better, and find more joy at work. So I want to welcome all of our panelists. And now I'll hand it over to Amy Clark to formally kick us off. Amy, welcome to Training Magazine Network.
Oh, thank you so much, Gary. And what a wonderful intro that was. I'm very excited to be here hosting this webinar and representing Panopto, and very much appreciate the important partnership Panopto and Training Magazine have to bring you this webinar. So before we dive in, a little background on Panopto, if you're not sure who we are, although Gary did a fabulous job setting it up. We are an enterprise video and knowledge management learning platform that helps organizations capture, manage, and securely share learning content across their business. So our mission is to make it effortless for people to find and access information when they need it, exactly when they need it. With Panopto, anyone can easily record, upload, and share videos, everything from onboarding sessions and product demos to leadership updates. Every video is transcribed, captioned, and indexed, so employees can search across thousands of hours of content and jump directly to the moment that they need instantly. And it's not just video. We also make it easy to upload and organize large volumes of supporting materials like manuals, PDFs, technical documents, so learners can access trusted company-approved resources right alongside the video content. So I'm delighted to be sharing the stage with two phenomenal L&D professionals in both Amy and Julia. I truly believe the future of learning isn't about creating more courses. It's about making access to quality content smarter, searchable, and instantly accessible. So quality for me being the key ingredient there. I'm excited to dive into the conversation around just-in-time learning. We know this isn't a new concept, but I think it's never been more relevant than it is today. In a world where 70% of knowledge is forgotten within a week of consuming it, employees need ready access to information in the moment of need. Just-in-time learning meets people where they are in their actual workflows, which is fundamentally more human-centered. So let's review what we plan to cover with you today. Thank you. We have a full and exciting agenda for you. So first, we're going to define what just-in-time learning really means, because every organization and individual defines it differently. So our panel will share how we define it, and we'll look forward to discussing how this aligns to your thinking. Then we'll explore how leading organizations are embedding learning directly into daily workflows. We'll also look at technology as a catalyst, so how platforms are making knowledge available at the speed of work. And importantly, we'll talk about strategic impact and how to measure what actually matters. We'll wrap up with the most important question: where could you practically start tomorrow applying these concepts? And we'll share real examples and leave time for questions and reflections. So we want this to be practical, actionable, and we want to encourage your participation through the webinar. So you'll find that we'll pause for polls. We want to hear from you. So please engage on the chat and through the polls so we know what resonates and what challenges you're facing. Last note before we dive in is you may notice a few names, Ina Horvath and Mackenzie Busby. They're both also from Panopto, and they'll be supporting us with the chat and answering questions. Ina later on will also support us with our Q&A portion. So speaking of polls, let's start with one right now. So we'd like to gauge where everyone is on their just-in-time learning journey. So first softball question: are you familiar already with the concept of just-in-time learning? Maybe you call it learning in the flow of work. Whatever it's referred to, we're really curious what you think. So just take a moment to complete the poll. We'll give it a moment here.
I love watching the bars go up and down. It's like a horse race.
Who's gonna finish strong?
Well, from that, it seems like there's so many learning professionals in here. So I'm certain we're going to have folks who have a good definition of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But, to your point that organizations think about it, or people think about it differently. I'm seeing that the highest score right now is like, not entirely sure how it works, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like a lot, and thank you for responding to the poll, everyone, but it looks like a lot are exploring it, maybe have some informal elements in place. That's pretty typical. Most organizations start with microlearning or a video-based learning support, and then they evolve towards a full integration into the flow of work. So today we're going to work to demystify how to do that with intention, moving from a loose concept to a structured approach that drives measurable business outcomes. So we're going to continue to move along. So let's spend some time defining just-in-time learning. So how we define this at Panopto is really about meeting people in the moment of need. Traditional training builds an important foundation to set the stage, set the scope for a broader learning objective, but it often assumes perfect timing, that employees will use what they learn right after they learn it, but we all know that rarely happens. So just-in-time learning is often bite-sized. It's focused on specific tasks or skills, making it perfect for employees who need quick access to information while on the job. So research has shown that 49% of employees can't access the information they need to do their job effectively. And this is what we refer to as the findability gap. And then 43% say training was ineffective because it came at the wrong time. So maybe they were trained on a concept or process they didn't have an ability to immediately apply. Think of onboarding. How much information are you consuming when you're onboarding? How do you find that in the moment of need? So even when we deliver great training, 70% of that knowledge is forgotten within a week, especially if the employee is unable to apply it right away. So our opportunity is to shift from training as an event to learning as a utility, something people can access anytime, anywhere, when it matters most. And importantly, be able to find quality and accurate content exactly when they need it. So at Panopto, we see this play out across several of our customer industries. For example, in manufacturing and energy, safety procedures are critical, but they can't always be recalled from memory, especially if you're under pressure. So one of our energy customers uses Panopto to host 2 to 3 minute safety clips. They tie those to a QR code. Those QR codes are placed on the equipment that they're servicing. So an employee scans the code, watches the procedure, and then is able to act immediately on the work. And incredibly, that approach and having the information and knowledge at the employee's fingertips has saved lives. It's prevented accidents, and it's strengthened compliance, all by making knowledge accessible in the flow of work. Now, this applies in professional services and technology also. Employees want self-serve knowledge. I mean, how many times have you leveraged your favorite AI tool for a quick answer, a framework, an example process, or an idea to brainstorm? I know I use mine every day. And organizations need to rethink how we get the right quality and accurate information into the hands of their employees. So technology can enable that, of course, but more and more organizations, and of course, L&D professionals, are realizing knowledge truly needs to be democratized. Most companies still rely on documents, PowerPoints, white papers to communicate ideas, or they serve as training reference materials, or especially for onboarding. And these formats fail to engage employees or create lasting understanding. People don't learn by reading alone, and many, especially those with neurodiverse conditions, learn best visually and auditorily. Did you know over 80% of people learn best by seeing and hearing? And we're actually going to unpack that a little bit more through this webinar. So does that mean formal training has died? I don't think so, but I do believe that there's a time and place and perhaps new approach for it. And there needs to be a balance of both for the right situation and use case. Amy, Lang, and Julia, how have you applied just-in-time learning to your organizations?
Thanks. I can jump in on that. And I really love the example you gave, Amy, with the QR codes on the machinery. Like, what an easy thing to do now that we have the technology to do that, right? It's amazing. So at Colliers, as Gary mentioned, we are a professional real estate services organization, and we have a number of different business lines. Most commonly, you're probably thinking about buildings for sales, office for lease. So we're working with a lot of sales professional or folks whose main job is to support their clients with their real estate needs. And that's everything from property management, valuations and advisory, project leadership, and as I mentioned, brokerage and sales. So we've been able to apply the just-in-time learning in a number of different ways, some that Amy just mentioned, onboarding, leadership development, and sales training. And we've had our success with really breaking down what were more longer formal training programs into bite-sized pieces. That's really having some traction with being searchable, easy to access. Certainly our sales professionals aren't looking for more time at their desk in a session. They want something that's on the go and that they can work on the road, in their car, on their phone. As Amy mentioned, just embedding it into everyday tools. So we'll talk a little bit about that, I think, in coming up. But at Colliers, our strength really comes from being decentralized and enterprising. So our learning needs need to reflect that. It's the preference of our people, of our learners. They're not thinking of themselves as being learners in the moment. They're thinking about how they're doing their job. So for me and for my team as an L&D professional, it's such an exciting time to be in this industry. I think we've seen a lot shift over the last 5 years. And there's such an emphasis on developing our people, and the tools we have access to are finally at a place where they can be just as agile as we need them to be, as business demands them to be, and is really what our people are expecting nowadays. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of what we've done here at Colliers. Maybe it resonates with stuff you've done in your organizations, or what you're thinking about, what you'd like to implement. But first, I alluded to it earlier. We had built a big instructor-led virtual program. The whole goal of this program was to help our professionals, our client-facing professionals, be better at pitching and presenting to their clients. At the end of the day, we want them to be able to win more business, and we want to give them the tools to do that. This was a course that was comprised of 3 virtual modules over 6 hours. Through feedback and piloting the program, we really realized that there were some really tangible moments that would work better as just-in-time learning. So that helped us to reduce the overall instructor-led portion of the course by an hour and a half. This was huge. Time is money for our sales professionals. So giving them the tools that they need to incorporate that into their workflow was truly valuable. The second one example is a little bit more operational, but historically our teams produced a lot of webinars or a lot of training, but it was the traditional PowerPoint webinar, bums in seats. And we just found that we didn't need to do that for a lot of our processes. So when it came to helping people onboard or use our systems, just-in-time learning was exactly what we needed. So we've been able to kind of flip that script within our learning team to really consider just-in-time learning as our primary go-to, instead of it being a bolted-on add-on after the fact.
Yeah, I love that. That immediacy of just-in-time learning really builds confidence. Employees feel equipped and not overwhelmed. In one healthcare organization that I worked at, we decided to closely follow the user's journey to build information into the product flow of our customer support team so that they had the specifics when they needed it, which is really important in a regulated environment where policies and process can change quickly, and simply too much information for people to retain from onboarding. And then thinking about my head of people work, I would also extend just-in-time learning to how and when we position sharpening leadership skills. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with a refresh on the process for performance reviews when it's time for annual performance reviews. And not surprisingly, we find it's the best time to refresh feedback skills. Though I always aim to nest that in a broader skill set and reinforce coaching skills for managers, how to offer balanced feedback to engage employees, to help pinpoint where they're most passionate or struggling the most. As we may know, managers tend to focus on who is struggling the most, but how do we also use performance reviews to elevate and supercharge our top performers? And so preparing for all these types of conversations is key. And the most helpful thing about just-in-time learning is that the learner is most open to learning at that time. It's so relevant and timely that it helps our brains perk up and absorb more information than we would otherwise be able to take in, like laser focus, like cramming for an exam. And so when these are high stakes interpersonal situations, the difficult performance conversation, for example, people are really invested and want to do their best, which is a great time for just-in-time learning to show up and help reinforce that skill set and provide reference materials. And to your point earlier, Amy Clark, about formal training, I agree, it's still critical. That's where we build the mindset and set the foundation. And formal training and experiential approach allows us to practice coaching skills and feedback skills based on use case scenarios or an example if we have one to work with. And then that's in a lower stakes situation. Then when it's more timely, like annual performance review time, we bring that information back, stretch our muscles, and practice to recall a model or a way of showing up in a conversation. And then you add that together, and it's much easier to bring effective skills to life in an actual challenging situation.
Absolutely. And, I'm kind of monitoring the chat and I'm listening to our conversation. And, I really kind of think of formal training as that traditional instructor-led training where just-in-time training could have a facilitator, but it could also be embedded, like the QR code, in the moment of need, or a video that was previously recorded that you can go back and search for the exact information that you need in the moment. So I think this is a really nice segue to our next topic around how we shift it into our daily workflows. So Amy, did you want to kick us off?
Yeah, happy to. I think we're already kind of edging on this topic kind of organically, which is nice. So as we think about the shift of people actually learning in work, and a lot of things have shifted for employees for the workplace over not just the last 5 years, but the last 10, 15, 20 years, right? So how people learn at work, I don't think anybody's waking up in the workday saying like, I can't wait to learn today. I'll find a way to carve out of my busy schedule how to, do 6 hours of training. Is there time and place for that? Absolutely. But most employees are looking at what results they need to deliver by the end of the week, that next pitch they need to go into, the new platform that was just rolled out, and they attended the training but maybe couldn't quite remember all of the steps in the process. So again, going back to that idea of being agile and how we can support people in the real world, right? In the flow of their work is really, really integral for us as learning professionals. People want to solve problems. Julia, you mentioned like perform better, make better decisions. They don't want to learn for learning's sake, right? It's not a check the box. I don't think any of us have time for just check the box in terms of learning. They want to get their job done and they want to do it well. And that's why embedding learning into the tools and processes they already use, whether it's Teams, Salesforce, Slack, whatever it is they're in already, that's what really creates that behavior change. Because if you think about it, if you need to know something and you need to log out of what you're doing, open an LMS, search through a catalog of old webinar recordings, and have to search through and find the information you need, you're not going to do it, right? Or at least I'm not going to do it. Maybe you guys are all more diligent than I, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to Google it. Maybe I'm going to ask ChatGPT. I'm going to ask my coworker. Who knows if they know what they're doing? So it's really trying to meet people where they are, but serving up something that's highly curated and easy. Julia, what do you think?
Yeah. That is exactly the behavior we see all the time. People are already doing just-in-time learning. They're just doing it in ways that aren't necessarily captured or supported by their organizations. They're texting their former colleague or manager. They're searching YouTube. They're DMing someone on Slack who probably knows, and they're being sent to someone else. And ultimately, that creates an impression in the organization, oftentimes, that people can't find the information that they need to do their job well. But the question's not whether just-in-time learning is happening. It's whether your organization is being intentional about how we support it, or leaving people to cobble together their own system. And the stats really back up what we're seeing. As you see here on the screen, 68% of employees say they prefer to learn at work during the flow of their daily tasks, which is from Degrees 2023 research. So more than 2/3 of your workforce is telling you, meet me where I am. Don't pull me out of my work to learn. Let me learn while I'm working, while I'm doing the things I need to do to be productive. Now, I'm sure this L&D audience is familiar with the 70-20-10 model for learning. And this makes a lot of sense here. Spend the majority of your time leveraging the time we already spend on the job. Naturally embedded opportunities to learn. There's a place for the 20% of social learning and the 10% of formal learning, but that isn't where we build a muscle and practice things over time. The 20% and 10% can open doors to seeing and understanding things differently, but then we practice and make it real, and we make mistakes and we integrate it over time. And speaking of mistakes, we know learning is so much more effective when we know exactly what we did wrong and why. And studies show that context enables our prefrontal cortex to light up and engage with that learning rather than triggering our amygdala and feeling incompetent around that. So it's important that just-in-time learning helps us learn the right way more quickly and correct as we go, rather than doing something the wrong way repeatedly and then needing to unlearn that behavior. And this also reinforces the importance of getting ahead of one of the biggest L&D challenges, which is keeping content current. If your learning content is extracted from actual work, then it naturally stays current. And when the process changes, the next time someone records themselves doing that new process, and that becomes the new learning content, which is nice and an organic way of keeping content current. In two organizations I've worked in, Airbnb and Freedom Care, the customer support function would try to solve this, updating of content information by sending periodic updates as like a catch-all communication or in team meetings. So if it was a weekly update, maybe an email update, which you can tell is maybe a little dated, but on an email update on policy or process changes, people would arrive on a Monday, struggle to get to the email or get through the whole email, and already be behind and making mistakes as they picked up calls. But I love that we can really get ahead of this now and solve a huge pain point for our users in this case being our customer support teams. And here's a stat that really should make L&D leaders pay attention. And then I'll pass it off to someone else to comment. But micro-learning increases knowledge retention by 80% compared to traditional long-form training. 80%. That's not marginal. That's a huge impact.
That's a huge impact. That retention number is huge. I love how you frame that. Like, it should make us pay attention. Absolutely. And it makes sense. If I watch a 30-second video on how to create a pivot table, because I don't do them very often anymore, right before I need to create a pivot table, I'm immediately applying what I learned. There's no gap between learning and doing, compared to if I take an Excel course. I took it 6 months ago, and even if I understood it at the time, if I haven't had a chance to immediately apply it, I've likely forgotten most of the content by the time I need to use it. So at Panopto, we are seeing organizations move from what I call event-based training, which I mentioned earlier, to knowledge ecosystems. And the difference is profound. Event-based training is, here's a course, take it, check the box, done, great, I've gotten through my to-do list. But a knowledge ecosystem is, here's a searchable video library, here's the AI-generated transcript that lets you find the exact moment when someone explains the thing you need, and here's the contextual links embedded into your workflow tools. Then the course becomes a living system, not a one-time event. You're not learning everything in one sitting. You're accessing what you need when you need it and coming back for more when your needs evolve. So it means surfacing micro content within the tools employees already use, so learning becomes frictionless. We like to say that the technology really should fade into the background. It's all about enabling the learning moment. One of our global manufacturing clients integrated video training directly into their maintenance workflow. So when machinery breaks down, the technician can access a short, context-specific video right from their mobile device. So similar to the QR code example I shared previously, but this time the content is embedded right in their handheld for easy access. That one change reduced downtime by 30%, and it nearly eliminated the need for follow-up supervision. That's pretty significant. The more seamless knowledge fits into daily workflow, the more naturally people learn. So we apply it ourselves as an example at Panopto. So through our own onboarding program for our employees, we actually distill the onboarding process into digestible learning events. And those are curated for the role, and they're spread intentionally over a 2 to 3 week time period. So of course it includes the traditional compliance and HR courses, but it also is specifically goes into specific functional deep dives on our product, sales processes, strategy, and all indexed so someone can go back and revisit when they need the information later, maybe when they feel a bit more settled. Another kind of fun fact is we also have every single new hire record their intro video. That's then shared by their manager to the entire company, which is again indexed and saved to our company video library. So people can learn about each other before they even have their first one-on-one meeting. It adds a little bit of humanity back into the experience. So I think this is a good place to pause. Let's go to our next poll because we'd like to hear from the audience about how you're seeing this play out in your own organization. So think about the discussion we've just had. Which learning topics in your organization would benefit most, or maybe you're already leveraging them for just-in-time learning. Think of onboarding, sales enablement, compliance, operations. What topics would benefit the most? Are you seeing speed of skill? Absolutely.
I think that speaks to a lot of the benefits you both have just commented on, right? Is that reduction of time, or the reduction in supervision. That really stood out for me, Amy.
Absolutely. And we think skills are necessary in every function of the operations, compliance, tech adoption, things like that. Well, thank you for contributing, everyone. Oh, go ahead, Julia.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I like seeing the employee engagement satisfaction one move, because that's always a big one for me. I'm thinking about, how to help people really feel more contribution and joy at work. And feeling competent is something I'm always looking to feel more competent around. Can I do the work quickly? Can I feel efficient? Am I wasting my time looking for things? So I like how a lot of people are looking at that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, what we didn't include in that poll and what I would have maybe just I'll touch on really quick is from my experience, the best starting points are process heavy roles. So where errors are super costly, or customer facing teams where speed and consistency matter. We did have kind of speed and consistency in there, more of an outcome. But those are the areas that I would choose to start. So I think we can move to the next section. We'd like to talk a bit about the enablers. So perfect, thank you. Specifically technology. So I wanted to start with a really important framing. Technology doesn't replace training. What technology does is unlock access and scale. So it enables the learning moment. I kind of view technology as the great equalizer in making just-in-time learning scalable. So video has become one of the most powerful enablers. It's really easy to create, it's easy to consume, and it's deeply human. In fact, we conducted a research study with Newton X where respondents from global companies with 1,000 and more employees representing multiple industries responded. And they shared that 77% of organizations using video say embedding it into daily workflows increases productivity. And 64% report measurable productivity gains from those who are leveraging video in the flow of work. But here's the key. Not all search is created equal. So in the age of Google, YouTube, AI chat tools, I'm sure you've all experienced this, employees can find an answer to almost anything, but it's not always the right answer. And as L&D professionals, part of our role is to protect the integrity and accuracy of the knowledge that we provide. So the real advantage comes from using technology that connects curated, verified content to the exact moment of need. And that's where platforms like Panopto or other video capture management software comes in. It's by ensuring that when an employee searches, they find the right clip, the trusted expert with the most current version of knowledge. Thinking of Qualcomm, one of our clients, for example, engineers at Qualcomm use Panopto to capture and share their expertise. They produce short demo videos, troubleshooting clips, process walkthroughs. The system automatically indexes every word spoken, so anyone can search across thousands of hours of internal video for a specific concept and jump straight to that moment, knowing it's accurate and sourced from their own experts. So that's not just efficient, that's transformational, as Julia was talking about before. It really helps to preserve institutional knowledge, speeds up onboarding, and ensures that expertise doesn't just walk out the door when someone leaves. Another use case that we use internally, as well as when someone leaves the company, we actually have them record key processes or workflows so that the next hire has access to that tacit information, which helps to actually accelerate their onboarding. And then we don't, as a company, lose that information. And that also helps the exiting employee feel that they're leaving a bit of a legacy behind. And means that new employee isn't reading through old emails, 100-page workflow documents. Like, how many times have you come in and taken over someone's inbox and trying to find that email from a month ago for that core process that you've now taken over? So, as AI becomes more embedded in our workflows through assistance, real-time search, and voice-driven learning, the organizations that can combine speed with accuracy truly lead the pack. So those mastering just-in-time learning today are the ones best positioned for tomorrow's pace of change. And what I'm seeing from days-long training sessions into microburst training that's more readily retained. Julia, what are you seeing?
Well, that mirrors how we naturally seek information now, right? When I need to learn to fix something, I'm not taking a course, I'm searching YouTube for my specific problem, watching a 3-minute video and solving it. Every time I go to run the descaler in my espresso machine, I'm looking up the same DeLonghi video online because I know it has the information I need. Even if I could find other information that would help, I know that particular video has the information I need. But now what if it wasn't my espresso machine, but was a process that can change, or I'm looking up our customer policies and communicating the wrong thing because I'm grabbing the file that I'm familiar with, but that hasn't been updated, or I'm offering a discount when we no longer do that, or passing them off to the wrong team and creating a terrible customer experience. Workplace learning needs to feel that immediate and not specific to the changing needs and the changing information. In my head of people hat, this can mean managers asking for advice from other managers on how to handle something super sensitive to employees, like inappropriate behavior, for example, but without remembering what the law is or what our policies say about how to engage with that kind of challenge. As humans, we overvalue the advice of people we know and trust. So as a leader, I want to get ahead of that and help the right content be readily available so that managers are empowered with the right information and helping employees in the best way possible. So not only updated and current, but readily available and easy to digest.
That's amazing. A couple of words that are jumping out for me just from this conversation, transformative and empowered, right? Like, that's what people want to be able to do, right? Like, feel like they can master their space and then continue to build on that. So like, that hit me. And also, I've been YouTubing the same videos to solve the same thing. So story was super relevant. As we're chatting about this, like, just in terms of like extending beyond finding content, right? About integrating learning into tools people use every day. I touched on that a little bit earlier, right? So if we think about collaboration platforms, and I know, Amy, you've mentioned what you do at Panopto for your own employees, and building that knowledge ecosystem, right? And being able to pull on all that institutional knowledge. Even for myself, I've been with my organization for 16 years now. Like, I have a lot of institutional knowledge that I don't think about every day. And then I just should probably start recording it for folks. But it's about integrating it and being agile as things are changing. Certainly, we've had instances where the workflow has changed, or people don't know, or we've told our managers about our leave of absence policy and procedures when they onboarded, but they never had to access it until 3 years down the road. So there's all these really practical and operational, and Amy, to your point, procedural things that we do every day that perhaps we take for granted. But it's about being able to identify those easily and then enabling our folks to do it. I mentioned earlier at Colliers, we're really decentralized, and on-the-job learning is often done at the business level. So my team supports more at the corporate level. So when we think about how people are working now, it's both in the field, it's hybrid. It might be some roles are 100% remote, or in the office, right? So thinking about how we're sharing language, approach and knowledge across our teams really has to change. And like many organizations, gaps exist in how people are learning and how they're capturing and storing knowledge, which I think Julia and Amy, you both touched on really, really well. One thing I do want to acknowledge as well is, while I think at Colliers, we're doing some things really well when it comes to learning and shifting into just-in-time learning, I think it's okay to also acknowledge where you are in that learning journey. So I've been able to share some examples of where we're doing it and where it feels like we're making that shift. But I know that we also have a lot of room to grow, and that might resonate with other folks on this call as well, that being able to identify those opportunities is really that first stop in thinking about technology as that catalyst.
That's wonderful. Thank you both. Really insightful perspectives. I'd love to now check in with the audience about what they're currently using from a technology perspective. Really curious to see, how you're enabling learning in the flow of work, or which technologies or platforms you use for just-in-time learning and knowledge sharing. Yeah, LMS, obviously, jumping right to the top. Oh, VMS, Panopto. Do we have some Panopto users out there?
I'd be curious to know how people are using collaboration tools, whether it's like a SharePoint, that's something that we've used at Colliers in terms of like centralizing information, but mostly documents. But yeah, be curious to see in the chat what other folks are doing in Teams and Slack.
I also wonder how many people are using the AI that might be built into the system that they're using to, search, like using Gemini in a Google Drive,
Right.
what document, what information do we have about the process to follow, which would pull from all information, not necessarily the most current information.
Right. Copilot, built into Teams. Like when I was in former company, everything was kind of embedded into that workflow. And I liked what you said earlier, Amy, about that kind of like I was called the historian when I was at a financial services company. I was there for 17 years, right? That's a lot of information. I wish I would have had a tool like this to be able to share some of that and leave it behind. Well, thank you everyone for responding. It looks like, the majority are using LMS. That makes sense. I'm not surprised to see collaboration tools like Slack and Teams on there either. Okay, so we've talked about what just-in-time learning is, how it works, the technology that enables it. Now let's talk about the part that matters to each and every one of us. How do we measure impact? So you need to be able to answer the question of what impact is your learning strategy driving, right? Ultimately, learning only matters if it's driving results. So the metrics that matter go beyond completion rates. And I know we all focus on that. It's the easiest thing to measure, but it's not telling us if the content has been absorbed. So we need to focus more on outcomes. So a few outcomes to consider are, speed to competence. So how quickly someone reaches full productivity. Just-in-time learning can dramatically compress that timeline because you're not waiting for someone to complete all their training before they start doing any real work. They learn what they need, when they encounter a real situation. And think of how we onboard. And if we onboard aligned to speed to competence and teach people what they need to know as they're being asked to perform certain tasks, this can truly ramp up speed to competence significantly. Another one to consider is error reduction. So fewer mistakes because knowledge is applied in real time. When people have access to just-in-time guidance at the moment that they're doing a task, they make fewer mistakes. They don't have to rely on imperfect memory of training or ask their neighbor or ask their boss. They can check the current procedure right before they execute it. And then innovation velocity. So how quickly teams adopt and share insights. So in traditional training, there's often a big gap, right, between when you learn something and when you use it. And that gap truly is where knowledge goes to die. So just-in-time learning nearly eliminates that gap because you're learning seconds or minutes before you apply it. So we always like to think about what use cases our clients can truly benefit from leveraging our technology to enable impact. And one logistics company saw onboarding time drop by nearly a third after replacing text-heavy manuals with searchable video walkthroughs. And those were delivered iteratively and aligned to when the employee needed the information. Like that's huge, a third. Like how many of us are struggling with onboarding and the onboarding process? Another customer in professional services reduced support escalations by 40% just by turning their top help desk tickets into short explainer clips that employees could access in the moment, driving down costs for the company. You know, the same question being asked over and over and over again. So when people can access answers immediately, the entire organization moves faster. What are your thoughts here, Amy or Julia?
Thanks. I can jump in. I just want to react as well to the data that we have on the screen. Companies using on-demand learning, which is essentially just-in-time learning at scale, right? We've been able to define that, report 24% higher productivity and 27% faster problem solving. And that's from Bearson's research in 2024. So like 24% higher productivity, like not incremental improvement at all. That's transformational, right? Going back to that word, that's transformational. And if you think about, to use Julia's words of like empowered, how employees would be feeling in that period of time. This is, about the speed of which we can solve problems faster, right? For our clients, think about our competitiveness, think about customer satisfaction, our own ability to innovate. And here's another stat specifically about video-based just-in-time learning. Among organizations using video training embedded in workflows, 77% agree that it increases the productivity and 64% report significant improvements in performance. So again, we're not seeing just anecdotal success stories here. We're talking about measurable, consistent improvements across large organizations, large numbers of organizations. Julia, is that what you found as well? Or is that consistent?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, those numbers are impressive. You know, what it makes me think of is actually going deeper on something that Amy Clark mentioned, shifting from measuring activities to measuring outcomes. Because I think that's where a lot of us and where organizations get stuck. It's easy to measure. Did everyone complete their onboarding training? Yes. Did they pass the assessment? Yes. Great. Check the box. We're done. But those are measures of compliance, not measures of capability or performance. The harder but more important questions are, can you hire successfully complete core tasks without supervision by week 4 instead of week 8? Are we seeing fewer customer escalations because our service team has better access to product information, or they're helping the product team figure out how to solve for the issue? Are our salespeople winning more deals because they can quickly access competitive intelligence before client meetings? Those are outcome measures that are very business driven. And the challenge is that they require you to connect learning initiatives to your business metrics. You can't just look at LMS data, which is easier typically, but not as impactful. You have to look at your CRM data, your quality metrics, customer satisfaction scores, revenue numbers. At Airbnb, we were scaling so quickly, we couldn't get ahead of hiring fast enough. So we took a look at the types of issues that people were reaching out about. And we focused first on a tenet that the best customer experience is one where the customer doesn't need to reach out at all. How do we solve the problem so that it's never a problem at all, creating a magical customer experience? Then we also took the greatest volume of pain points, where 20% of the types of issues people reached out about covered 80% of the ticket volume, and focus on solving those, that partnership with the product team, and trained customer support for those, and enabled a dynamic FAQ section for customers and for team members to help resolve something the first time that they spoke, rather than going back and forth. Now, that was over 10 years ago. And now we have AI helping us solve for this more organically, in terms of information for customer support teams. But in terms of measuring impact, at the time, this meant that instead of needing to hire 800 people within 3 months, I needed to hire 200 people, which is a massive difference in impact to the business. And in terms of compliance, back to my earlier point about anti-harassment training, which is a classic check the box training or activity for both the organization and the learner, is the point to cover the material and create agreement in the moment and to be compliant with the law. Or is it to create a work culture that is safe and supportive and healthy so that people can do their best work? So, we're often measuring culture with an engagement survey, which is, of course, a metric we can use, but taking that to the bigger picture, we're talking about creating effective teams that do better work and work at a place where they want to stay, which is the retention statistic. Now, when people can access knowledge in the flow of work, they feel empowered and valued. And those are items that are often captured by some measure of the engagement survey. Can I find the information that I need in order to do my job well? They're feeling empowered. They're not waiting for help. They're not stuck. They're not feeling incompetent because they forgot something from training. And so to your point, Amy Lang, about the statistics you shared around how much more productive people feel, that really resonates with me, because people feel capable, autonomous, that the organization is supporting them, which is a huge driver of employee satisfaction and retention. And given that the cost of turnover is often 1 to 2 times someone's annual salary, improved retention is a massive business impact, even if it's harder to measure than productivity, for example.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, we focused on, we all measure completion rates, but, you can see the evolution of how, with just-in-time learning, how much more we can measure. I loved your story about the progression over 10 years at Airbnb. And, instead of hiring 800, you needed to hire 200. Like, that's huge. I know we're getting short on time. I'm going to just offer a quick check-in with the audience because I'd love to hear what they're measuring. So this will be our final poll. But what metrics or indicators does your organization track to measure L&D success? Yep, of course, completion rates. Employee engagement. Oh, good. I'm happy to see a bit of employee engagement and satisfaction in there.
Yeah. It's harder to measure speed of skill, right? Depending on what the job is, but perhaps ramping up time is more qualitative. It's great.
Yeah, this is
And there
great.
are some things, in terms of compliance that really we do need to know if it's done or not done.
100%.
So I think completion rates are definitely helpful.
I know we
complimented
the correlation of, like, when it comes to compliance, actually how many incidents are raised throughout the year. So there's that leading and lagging indicator. But yeah.
Absolutely. Completion rates are never going to go away. We're always going to measure that. We just, are going to supplement it with a little bit more.
Exactly.
So I think this is a great segue to where could you start tomorrow? So we've covered a lot of ground. We've covered the what, the why, the how, the impact of just-in-time learning. So let's get to the very real question of where do you actually start? Like, what could you do tomorrow or next week to begin moving the needle in this direction? So let's make it really practical. So we're going to walk you through 3 actions that you could take to get moving. And these are based on what we've seen work across hundreds of organizations. The key is don't do everything at once. Don't try all 3. Like, have an iterative approach to this. So pick one, prove the concept, learn, iterate, then expand. So the first action is link your learning to your business goals. And I know that sounds obvious, but stay with me because this is where most implementations go wrong. So don't start by saying we need just-in-time learning or we should implement a video platform. Start by asking what business problem. So are you trying to reduce time to productivity for new hires? Are you trying to improve safety outcomes? Are you trying to increase sales win rates? Or maybe you're trying to reduce customer service escalations. But start with the business problem and then ask, how can just-in-time learning help to solve for this? Because if you just start with the technology or the concept,
we're not staying.
Looks like we lost her. Maybe Amy or Julia, you can pick it up.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, and I think Amy was at that stage was kind of wrapping up her point.
I'm here.
Good.
I don't know what happened there. That was weird. But yeah, I was basically wrapping up anyway. So apologies for that minor blip there. But what I was saying, I think I got cut off, is that if you start with technology, then you just end up with a solution looking for a problem. But if you start with a real business pain point that leadership actually cares about, then you have built-in stakeholder buy-in and clear success metrics. So Amy, I'll hand it over to you for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be no surprise at this stage. We've mentioned it a couple of times, but it's those critical workflows, right? So as Amy said, don't go bringing a solution for and looking for a problem, but like looking at those workflows that could really benefit from folks being more empowered, more informed, more empowered to do their role, right? So I think all of us, and speaking with our stakeholders as well, could start to identify where in the business these critical workflows exist, and then be able to look to technology as a potential solution for those. Julia, thoughts?
Yeah, launching a focused pilot, I love launching a pilot because it's a way to test a hypothesis and get feedback, which helps to create buy-in from our users and then iterate on it and try it again. I think I saw a comment in here from Brandon, measuring in order to understand impact. Exactly. We're measuring to figure out impact, apply some design thinking, figure out how we can improve this. So, you don't have to start big, start small, pick one team, one workflow, one pain point, really focus and as valuable as possible for that specific use case. So maybe a searchable onboarding hub for one department, a micro training playlist for the customer support team, maybe a refresh on one skill every day that's just a really short video, or competitive intelligence clips for your sales team before big pitches. Just maybe something where you can show impact quickly, maybe within 30 or 60 days. So you can come back and say, we tried this with the customer service team. It impacted the business in terms of reduced resolution time, reduced number of tickets, increased customer satisfaction scores, and the team loves it. And we got this feedback. And we want to implement that next. And now let's expand. And so that proof point is what gives you the credibility and the budget to scale. And it's a great learning experience, leveraging the people who are really in the process to help build out the solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Julia. I think, in summary, start with a business goal, get really specific about where people get stuck, develop clear workflows, start small, launch a pilot, create some FOMO, right? And remember to embed this in your culture and your ways of working. We were going to have a Q&A. I recognize we're right at almost the top of the hour now. So what I would encourage you to do is send questions to us through LinkedIn. We would love to answer questions and keep the conversation going. So I think I'm going to move to wrapping us up at this point and just thank you all very much for being here and engaging so thoughtfully. And thought I'd leave you with 3 things. So the first is think of learning as moving from scheduled to searchable. The future isn't more courses, it's smarter access to the knowledge you already have. The second is technology enables learning at the speed of work. You don't need perfect tools, but you need tools that meet people where they are. And the third is just-in-time learning drives measurable business value. So start small, measure impact, and scale what works. So formal training will always have its place, but the organizations that thrive are the ones that make learning as accessible as a Google or AI search. And technology can make learning faster, but it's trusted knowledge that make it effective. So, we can help organizations connect people to the right information securely, seamlessly, and in the flow of work. So learning becomes part of how work gets done every day. Panopto's video case management platform makes it super easy to create, manage, and share video. If you're interested in learning more, don't hesitate to reach out to me. So please connect with us on LinkedIn. We want to keep the conversation going and hear how you're applying some of these ideas. And also, I'd love to see some of you in person. So please check out the upcoming Training Magazine Conference and Expo in Orlando, February 23rd to 24th to 25th. The Panopto team will be there, and we're hosting a speaking session where we're going to be announcing the results of an ongoing survey we're doing with Training Mag. If you haven't seen it, I think we're going to drop it in the chat. So please do take a moment to chime in. So thank you to my amazing co-facilitators, Amy and Julia, for their time and insightful wisdom today, to Ina and Mackenzie for supporting the chat and answering questions, and to Gary and Training Mag for hosting us. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Amy. I appreciate everybody coming today and our great panelists. Thank you all for rating the session in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you haven't already, we'd really like to get your input there because the other 238,000 people in Training Magazine Network would like to know what you have to say, how you rated it, okay? So please help us out by doing that. And also let us know in the bottom right-hand corner your takeaways from the session. What really resonated with you? What do you think you can implement tomorrow, as we were talking about there on the screen. We've got we're at the top of the hour, but maybe we can take 5 minutes here, Amy, to do a couple of questions anyway, and then if anybody wants to know how to get the transcript for this, put a note to me in the chat, and I'll show you that afterwards. But Amy, do we have time for that?
Yeah, we do. If I know, I'm not sure if my other co-presenters have another meeting to run to, but happy to take a question if anyone has a burning one.
Great. And we have so many questions there. I know you've grabbed some there.
That's right. Let me give a few brief moments for our attendees to write down their questions if they want them to be answered first. But some of the great questions have been asked during the panel.
And Patty's got a good one. How can you implement collaboration tools effectively? Amy, do you have a comment on that?
Use Panopto. No, but seriously, look at the tools that your team's using, whether that be Slack or Teams, and, find a way that you can implement a solution that would be in the flow of work. Obviously Panopto integrates with Slack and other tools like that. So it is really truly in the moment of need, but really look at how, again, coming back to that, identifying the business pain point that you're trying to solve for versus immediately choosing a tool or a technology solution, and then work on where are the biggest pain points and gaps in that process, and then what ultimately might be the solution for you. But happy to share more and learn more about what your pain points are, maybe outside of the call, and help you kind of guide you there.
Jeremy,
I love your pointing to. Oh, can I jump in, Gary, real quick?
Sure.
I love your pointing to like the pain point. I think implementing a collaboration tool, the key thing is how do you get people to want to engage in behavior change, which is hard for us. So if we're targeting the biggest pain point, then resolving that pain point is greater than the pain of using a new tool. Absolutely.
ROI is key. Like, how do you show the return? What's in it for them? And how do you engage them, right, in creating the solution? The biggest resistors are folks that you should get on your project team right away.
I'm going to help people get to some resources here at Panopto while they're still in the session. And then we have a couple of other good questions here as well. So just folks be prepared, because you'll see a resource pop up on your screen there. And if you have a pop-up blocker, well, then you might have to alert it to please let that through. But Bill had a question. He says, what are some ways to implement this just-in-time learning approach in a social services environment where phone use is generally discouraged?
Sure. I think, phone use is discouraged. Are they using laptops? Like, is there another form or device where, like, ready access to a video, or maybe not even a video, but something that's been recorded in terms of maybe ingesting manuals or PDFs could be accessed. It doesn't have to be a mobile phone. It could be your laptop as well. So that's something to think about, is what's the device that they're using? Because if there's a device, then that provides them access to the tool.
Okay, I think
and maybe a tablet. Sorry.
Right.
We have one more. Audrey asked, how do you get the old information updated? How does that happen?
Yeah, I was hoping that would come up. How are we doing it today? So, like, we need to update our documentation when things change, our policies, our manuals. With just-in-time learning, if you're using a video solution, it reduces that time to update significantly, because you're just searching for that clip or that video that needs to be replaced. You don't have to replace a whole 150-page manual because one chapter is now out of date. It really speeds up your ability to stay on top of and clean up the data or the training materials that your organization leverages. So that's another ROI, or kind of what's in it for you in terms of moving to something that will help you speed up not only time to productivity, but your people's access to the materials that they need to do their jobs.
You know, I have a question too before we go. I've seen Panopto in action, although I haven't seen the latest version, but it's pretty amazing. And what Amy is describing is sort of sort of out there in the ether. If you could see it, it would really be helpful. And so my question to you, Amy, is where can folks go to see a demo? We don't like to do demos during our webinars, but where can they go to see a demo of this, or who can they contact, or whatever?
Absolutely. No, reach out to me or Ina, and we will get you connected to someone that can provide a demo. Absolutely, including some demo like content. There is some on our website, but probably better to reach out to me directly because we would tailor it based on what you're really looking for.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank Amy and Julia, as well as Ina and everybody else at Panopto for making this webinar possible and for helping us really deliver what you folks have all rated to be an excellent panel discussion. So I encourage you to go to panopto.com and take a look at that resource page too that I launched for you. And hope to see you back here as well. But we especially hope to see you in Orlando at the conference, right? And see you at the Panopto booth there. So check us out February 23rd to 25th. You can download the brochure of the conference right here in the handout spot. I put it up again. And you can just go to trainingconference.com if you want to learn more about that. If you want to go, then January 9th is the cutoff date to save $300. So if you get into action soon, then you can save that $300 on registration, or the $25 just to get in the expo hall. Then you can go to the Panopto booth and all the others as well. So thank you very much, Amy and Julia. Hope to see you back here again in a few moments. I'll show you all how to get a transcript of everything that was said today. And thank you once again to Panopto. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.